Welcome to The Emergent Human, where we explore optimizing health, embodied spirituality, and post-conventional living. I'm Michael Osterling, a therapist, coach, and educator, and I'm your host. Today's guest is Gloria Celeste, CEO and founder of Lavender Moon Spaces. I think it's fascinating talking about your retreat and the insights you had, because I think it flows nicely to kind of post-conventional living and some of the alternatives we have, how we want to live our lives, and where we want to live our lives, and kind of construction of things to live our lives within. So you just did a Vipassana 10-day?
Vipassana. Yeah, 10-day Vipassana.
Retreat. Mm-hmm. So what led you to that retreat?
So I've been meditating for 8 years now, and I like meditating, but to imagine spending 10 hours a day meditating felt like quite a feat. So I applied actually like 4 years ago, but I didn't go. So it sounded really scary and intimidating. But this year I turned 30, and Anthony and I have been talking about wanting to have kids soon.
Nice.
So I really wanted to do something memorable for myself that would just benefit my and our future. And I honestly couldn't think of anything better than this, which I was really scared to do, and it felt incredibly intimidating, but I just felt deeply called to it. So I applied. I was on the wait list for months. I didn't find out I was able to go until weeks before. And even though in my soul I knew I was meant to go, I fought it all the way up until even when I got there. Like, I was signing in, and they said to bring a COVID test, but I didn't. I don't know, I just thought that was old, like that we didn't have to do that anymore. So I was like, well, maybe I won't have to go. Maybe I'll just go home, turn around, go home. And then they asked me when I'm signing in if I had felt sick in the last few weeks, and I was like, no. She's like, okay, you're good. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing this. So a big part of it was like just wanting to face my fears and just like get rid of this unknown realm that I fear. You know what I mean?
Did you go in knowing what fears you wanted to face?
Yeah, I mean, obviously death is the big one. Facing the fear of death was something that I knew was going to come up, but I was really just trying not to think about it. And I feel like I faced it enough times, like it was like time to go a little deeper into it. But that was probably the only one I was really trying to sit with and break through.
What did you learn about death?
So I learned that, I experienced sensation in a whole new way. Just the reality of the fact that everything that we're experiencing in a moment-to-moment basis is just sensation. A reality is just sensation, and death is just the same thing. When you think about it, you're living your entire life and then you die. Well, how long does it take to die? Really? So you're really only experiencing a sensation for a temporary period of time. That's all that death is.
Do you make a distinction between like literally physical death that you wanted to explore and maybe psycho-spiritual death?
Definitely explored both.
Okay.
So the sensation part of the experience is that I think that's like the physical response that we have. It's like we're scared to leave our body, But then on the more spiritual side of things, they taught a lot about Buddhism, which is it's a workist religion. So they don't believe in God. They believe in Dhamma, which is the law of nature or universal law. So it's what you can observe and witness for just what is real. It's logic, it's rationality, it's science. So I didn't feel settled. I don't know, that just didn't feel like enough for me. I was like, you still witness nature, and that can't just be all there is, because in order for there to be something that has been put together like that, then there had to be some kind of intelligence behind it. So if there was an intelligence behind it, then that points to a creator. Just like if you were walking through nature and all of a sudden you stumble upon a chair, You don't look at a chair and think, oh, that just evolved there out of nowhere. Like someone thought of something and created something and put the time and energy into it. Or my friend explained it like, if you took all the pieces that it would take to put a cathedral together and you just laid them all out and then just see what happens over thousands of years, is it going to put itself together? No, there's something else that's putting things together. So
that's something that generated from your meditation and the retreat, like you saw into the intelligence that generated the world we live in? Is that what I'm hearing?
So it was actually an experience of sensation. So by the end of it, you're doing a lot of scanning of your body. So that's kind of like they teach you at the beginning how to use your awareness to focus on your breath, and then you use that awareness to focus on sensations in a small part of your body, and then you expand to the whole of your body. So by the end of it, you are very aware of what it feels like to experience sensations in different parts of your body. And it's not just sensations like, oh, I just poked myself or my neck is tense. It's like, it's a different kind of sensation. It's like what you feel when you get anxious and like you feel a sensation in your chest. It's like that. It's something else other than just like something outside of you. So I had been experiencing so many different sensations in my body in different places. And as I would sit with those sensations, I would have stories or flashbacks or memories start to come up. And so by the end of it, on the last day, like my last meditation, it just kind of clicked. I was just like, well, there is an intelligence to these sensations, because how are their memories being connected to different parts of my body? And it's like, at one point I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. Like it was like that intense of a sensation, but because they train you how to just be in equanimity with every sensation, you literally just sit there and experience it. And what you realize is that the only thing that is constant is change. So the pain's going to arise, the pain's going to pass. The scariest part of death is the fear of it. So we're really just in fear of fear itself, because on the other side of that is something that we can't explain. So I think just like becoming so familiar with sensation and being like, there's an intelligence to the way that these sensations move and the things that come up when I'm experiencing certain sensations. So it can't just be law of nature. It can't just be, what is. There has to be something else behind that. So that was what brought me to that.
So that was your
moment.
Second major insight.
Yeah.
The intelligence behind. Okay, very cool. You mentioned that all the various sensations emerged from various parts of your body, and you had other parts of your being express itself, like visually. Memories came up. Did you hear voices? Walk through some of these things if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Some of the things that emerged as you're feeling into yourself, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a really interesting story about this, because there was one that was particularly scary and also like a big realization moment came through it. So the first time that I was practicing the full Vipassana experience, which is starting from the top of your head and scanning all the way down your body. So for the first 3 days, you're just noticing your breath and you're focused on the awareness of your breath and then the sensation of just on your upper lip. That's it. So the entire practice is bringing your awareness back to your breath and then to just this area right here. So then on the fourth day, when they introduced Vipassana and I started scanning my body, I had a really beautiful experience and I was like almost seeing things visually. And it was the most pleasurable moment of the experience because I wasn't experiencing pain. I was feeling just like this warmth and like it felt like glowing from my body. And that was a great experience. And then the next sit right after that, I had the most scary like experience. So I was just meditating and I was kind of in a little bit of the visualization realm, which I learned later you're just supposed to stay focused on the sensations of your body, not go into any visualization with your eyes closed, nothing like no created. So I experienced this really intense fluttering in my ears and it freaked me out. My body responded to that like as if it was about to die. So I was just like, what was that? Like, was I about to die? Was I about to enter a portal? Am I about to go into another dimension? And so the whole rest of the day, I was like not sure what was going on with this ear fluttering thing, but I thought it was something like maybe spiritual, or maybe I'm gonna pop and like become a enlightened being or something. Like I thought something was gonna come of it, but nothing really happened. So then I'm just sitting in fear. And it progressed even more that evening when I was going to bed. The air conditioning was triggering the fluttering in my ears. So it was something, I don't know, my ears were hypersensitive, and certain frequencies would trigger the fluttering. But it's an intense fluttering. It's like having a moth in your ear, and like it was very intense. So I'm sitting in bed and the fluttering will not go away, and I'm freaking out. I am in I'm in so much fear. And I was like, am I going to be like abducted by aliens? Like, is someone coming for me? Am I going to like become a channel like Abraham Hicks? Is this what happens right before? Or like, is this really the Matrix and I'm about to like enter, I'm about to leave this reality and like wake up from it? And so all of this is happening, and it's really scary because I think that's the ultimate fear, is like the detaching of this reality. But it was like, I was curious about it. So I kept kind of diving in and was just basically paranoid, is what I realized the next day. So I talked to the teacher the next day, and I was like, I was having these sensations and I was experiencing this and this was happening. And I even was like hearing voices, and it was like all like good things, but it was freaking me out. Like I was in a lot of fear. So I talked to her about it, and she was like, that's just illusion. Don't pay attention to it. That's all she said. And I was like, what? Really? Like, that was just an illusion? And so I was sitting with that for the rest of the day, and I realized I fabricated that entire experience. Nothing was happening, actually, except for just a fluttering. It was just a sensation, and I had a response, and I had a whole story made up in my head, and I was fabricating even to the point where my room was like sucking in on itself. So it revealed to me the level of delusion that we can get ourselves into, when in reality, we're just experiencing sensations. So then I just kept, every time my ears would start fluttering, I would just tell myself, it's just a sensation. And it was like, then my response to it, the intense fear response, which then led to the stories, it started being less and less and less and less and less. And after that point, I really started realizing the power of just recognizing that the sensation that you feel is just a sensation, whether it's an ear fluttering or a chest or a feeling like you're about to have a heart attack. Not saying that that doesn't happen, but in general, most healthy people are having sensations, and that's all they are.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you had a realization that we generate stories, most of them not necessarily good, around sensations in the physical body.
Okay. And it can take you, it took me down some like really interesting paths, because I got to see my ego play out when I was like in the story versus when I was just in the present. And it was two completely different realities. When I was in the story, I was more judgmental of others. I felt a little more puffed up. I felt like I was better than other people, or I was maybe reaching some more higher level of enlightenment. So I was someone special. So I'm going to get something special. I'm going to get some reward, whether that means I get abducted by aliens or I start to channel now, like I'm some special being. Versus when I was present, I was much more humble, and I was just aware of the fact that like I'm not perfect. I have moments of weakness, and I'm just doing my best. And it just made the whole reality more like equal. It's like, I'm not better than anyone, So I was experiencing these two extremes of my ego, but the one where I was more humble and in the present had so much more love and understanding and compassion for others, which then reflected back to myself, which was a really potent, powerful experience.
Talk to me a little bit about how you see emotions and sensations in the body, the relationship, if there is one between the two, and if what we consider emotions arose during the meditation, and how you're able to be with them differently.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what's the connection between emotions and sensations
that you experienced? That
I experienced?
Yeah. Because you talked about sensations and stories. I'm curious where emotions fit into that.
So when I was present with just my sensations, because that's the entire experience. You're not going into story, which is where the emotion is. You're just staying in the sensational experience. But emotions arise. I noticed emotions would only arise when I would go into a story.
Okay, so there's a connection then between cognition and emotions that you experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because when I was just present with the sensation, there was no emotion.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that when you have a story and you name the emotion, that leads to more story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think so. Like there was a moment where I was experiencing a lot of pain right in my upper shoulder right here.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was sitting with it, like all of a sudden I just get this flash of like my dad dying. And it's like, you know, feeling that and experiencing that. And I started crying and it was a whole experience. And then later on, as I was continuing to just focus on the sensation and not go into the story, I would have a really intense like flash of something come up, but it wasn't emotional.
Interesting.
So there wasn't really much of the emotional release that I think a lot of practices teach. It was more just about being with it and not craving something pleasurable and not avoiding something painful. It was just being with the sensation. That was it.
Which leads to the three.
Yeah.
You talked about off camera.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little about those three? Aversion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the other two.
Yeah. So the three things that create suffering. According to Vipassana, which is a Buddhist style of meditation, are craving, ignorance,
okay.
and aversion.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about craving and aversion as, in your own experience, like how you use them to move yourself away from your direct experience?
Yeah, so I would say for me, aversion was the big one that came up a lot. I've definitely done a lot of work about like not like wanting certain things. There was still a lot of work there, but I had a lot more work in the aversion realm. So a lot of aversion is literally just avoidance of pain, avoidance of painful things, avoidance of hurtful things. So being in that experience, in order to be in equanimity, which is what made the practice so powerful. And when you're in that equanimous state, you also will get like flashes of wisdom coming up. You'll have realizations. So instead of avoiding the pain, I started to be able to sit with it. So like for one sitting, my legs were burning sensation in my legs for the last hour of one of the 2-hour sits. And the whole time I was just like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? And it was at that point of the meditation where the last few days you are supposed to choose a position and you don't move. So that's when the real work starts, because you can't get out of the pain. So now you're forced to truly sit with it. And I just decided in that session, I'm just going to sit with the pain the whole time and just see what happens. So I didn't move. I didn't like try and get out of the pain. I just sat with it. And every minute was just another minute to commit to just being in the pain, not trying to change it. Being in the pain, not trying to change it. And at the end of it, nothing miraculous happened. It was just another ordinary moment. I got up, the pain went away in my legs. And for the rest of the time, I never had burning sensation pain in my legs. So that taught me just like, you know that quote, it's like, we're not afraid of failing, we're afraid of our own power. Mm-hmm. It was one of those moments where I was like, I am stronger than I think. I can handle more pain than I think. And the only thing that I'm fearing is the fear of experiencing pain. But I realized my power of just being able to be equanimous with the pain and just to witness it and to observe it instead of reacting or trying to change it. You can just witness it and observe it. And whether it goes away or not is not the goal. The goal is just to stay in the equanimous place with it. So
increasing resilience.
Yeah, so that increased my resilience 100%. Yeah. Because before, I feel like if something would happen in my day that would throw me off, I almost had this mindset of like overly optimistic. And some people call it toxic positivity. Okay. You know, so it was like, I was like, that's not me. I'm positive, blah, blah, blah. And so like seeking and reaching after this place where like, I'm always positive. But then something would happen that I didn't like, and I would spiral off. What did I do wrong? Why is my day bad now? Why am I feeling sad? Instead of just accepting that and sitting with it, I would try to get back to that state. So I was like craving the more pleasurable experience.
So creating even more suffering for
Yes.
yourself in that process. Okay.
So that's an example of how craving creates the suffering.
Okay.
And then on the other side of things, I was also avoiding sitting with the pain. So that was creating suffering. So I was just like in this cycle of suffering, just self-created.
Wow. So how has this resilience showed up for you since you've been back?
Oh my gosh, so much. I've been noticing it. So, you come back from an experience like that, and the first couple of days, you're pretty sensory deprived. So coming back, you're just like, everything feels new. Sensation is amazing. You can eat more food. You can have physical touch. You can talk to people. So it's like, at first, everything's amazing. And then you settle back into your life, and it's like, okay, and now what? And now what? So coming back since then, kind of getting back grounded into reality where there's distractions and information and conflict and tension and all of these things, I've noticed that I don't stay stuck as long in the difficult things. Okay. I don't get into drama, gossip, judgment. I just sit and observe it, and I still feel sad. But it's it takes me to the emotion a lot faster instead of the story. I feel like it's because I'm better at now tuning into my body and being with the sensation, I'll feel a bit of pain, I'll feel hurt, and then I'll cry. And then maybe an hour later, it'll be like nothing happened. And
because you process it out of your system, it's not getting stuck.
Yeah. I'm not going into the story. I'm just taking full responsibility for what I'm experiencing. And I'm allowing for that to pass through my body. And it's created a lot less suffering and stuckness in my day-to-day life.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You also had mentioned too that it's affecting your kind of daily schedule.
Yeah.
Talk a little about that.
Yeah, so my daily schedule now. So the first week coming back, I didn't really have any kind of schedule, but it was so regimented there that coming back, I was I kind of craved that. I actually really wanted some kind of a schedule so I didn't have to think about it. And I realized in the past, I was so avert to having a schedule because it felt like controlling. But something about it actually gave me a lot of purpose and direction and focus. So I was like, okay, well, what would it look like to create a schedule for myself now? What do I want that to look like? And the meditations were 1 to 2 hours. And I realized that's about a really good amount of time where you can put intense focus into something and then break, even just for 5 minutes, and you can come back to it. So I was like, I'll create something kind of like that. So 1 hour meditation in the morning, 1 hour meditation in the evening, and then I built out the rest of the schedule just kind of intuitively. So right after my meditation, I do 2 hours of focused work, and then right after that, I have a 2-hour lunch break, and then after that, I have another 2-hour work break, and then after that, I have a 2-hour house chores. And then after that, I'm free, and then I have my meditation, and then I'm free after that. So I created this schedule for myself, and now I just have my schedule, and I have my master list of everything that I want to do. Everything, I just list it all out. So then during my work break focus, I'll focus on all the work stuff on my list, and I'll be like, hey, I'm going to start with that. And then during my house break focus, I'll look at my house stuff, and I'll do that. During my lunch break focus, I'll look, what do I want to cook today? And I'll make that. And I feel just so much less overwhelmed. And I feel like it's that the structure is giving me freedom now, because now I can focus my energy at different times on different things. And I have the freedom to choose exactly what I want to do during that time. Because I'm not saying, oh, I have to do this. I just look at the list and I know what's most important. So I just focus on what's important, get done as much as I get done. Then it's break time, I go to the next thing.
Talk about how much more productive that makes you.
So much more productive. I feel incredibly more productive because I only have so much time I'm doing that one thing. This is my one time a day I'm dedicating to that thing. So, and especially not having as much aversion to just not doing things I don't like. Just the fact that that's out of the way now makes everything much more productive because I don't have as much resistance to doing things I don't like. I actually now enjoy a lot of the things I don't like. I've been enjoying laundry, which I used to hate. So I think just getting to the root of the unconscious reality and like being in that space and dealing with like the core level aversion, that has allowed me to show up in my day-to-day life with just more commitment and focus. I have a lot more energy. I have a lot more resilience. So just sharpening different character qualities has fixed most of my life problems.
Nice.
And now everything gets to flow intuitively. And I look at all the stuff I got done and I'm just like, wow, I got a lot done. How did I get that done? Because I'm more present now. Yeah. I'm more present with every activity. I'm not picking up my phone every other second and checking it. I'm not thinking about all the things I need to do and then getting distracted from doing the one thing. I'm just doing the one thing, and then that's done, check it off. Go to the next thing, it's done, check it off. And it's just simpler. And like the simplicity gives my mind more energy to focus.
That sounds amazing. Wonderful for you. How's it showing up in your relationships?
Oh my gosh, in my relationships, you're hitting all the areas it's been showing up in. In my relationships, it's been showing up in just having so much more grace and understanding for people, because when you go through so much pain and misery in your life, you start to realize that's what everyone's experiencing in some capacity. Because even if my pain is this deep, or this many things have happened that have caused me pain, I'm still feeling pain. Even if this person had these many things and maybe they weren't as big pain, to them, that's the same level of pain as your experience. So everyone's experiencing the same amount of pain in whatever way. And when you realize that, you start to, like, the veil of judgment starts to come off, because you're like, oh, if they're not acting from love, they're just acting from pain. And so that reality in itself has freed me from taking things personally.
Nice.
So now when I'm experiencing something, or when something's happening that's out of my control in my relationships, I know it's not me. So I don't have to take that personally. I don't have to take that on. And I can now see the situation with love and show up with support and in service to all the relationships in my life, because I don't need anything, because I'm taking full self-responsibility now. I don't need anyone to give me anything. Of course, I have desires, but sometimes those desires are what create the misery of things. So I'm able to show up in service, and I'm asking the question now more often, how can I be of service? How can I help this person? How can I support them? And I'm thinking a lot less about myself. And that just feels good. I've realized it feels better to give than it does to receive. Really. It actually feels better, because you can actually control the act of giving.
Interesting. Okay.
So something about that just feels like that's in my control. I can control giving. So, yeah.
I have to imagine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you will still on occasion have stories pop up in your head.
Yeah.
You still kind of go in that direction.
Oh, yeah.
As a human being.
Yeah.
With the profound insights you had from that 10-day experience, like, how are you able to do those differently?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. Okay. So last night I had a dinner with all my friends. It was like the first time that I had people over and got to be with like a group since I got back. And it was also kind of like a casual birthday dinner, but I didn't really want to call it that. Huh?
Birthday?
Yeah, my birthday. So my birthday was on the 1st of December. So I was in the 9th day of Vipassana.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Belated.
Yeah, so I was in the 9th day of Vipassana on my birthday, and another one of my big intentions was to be alone and be happy, because I had a lot of attachments to how I wanted people to show up for me on my birthday, which created some of the deepest like pain in my life over the years. So I really wanted to break that this year. And of course, so that showed up the most throughout my Vipassana experience, and even coming home and last night. So we had maybe 3 hours of hanging out before we were going to do an hour meditation together. And the last hour, when everyone was finally here, they were playing this class game. And I'm at the table, and I wanted to like connect and talk and share with people like what I had experienced over this like crazy life-changing experience. And they're in here playing class. And so I was really trying to be present, but my mind was just like, why aren't they in here like with me? Like, this is supposed to be like my night. Like, we're supposed to be like, talking together, and they're over there playing this game. We don't have that much time. So, my mind's going off into all these stories. But instead of being like going to the dark place I would go, like, oh, I'm inadequate, people don't care about me, I'm not enough, they're not considering me. I just kind of sat with it and really tried to stay present because I was in a conversation. So I was in a conversation, and my sister gets up and comes over, and I think she said something to them, and then they all came in the room and we sat down and we ended up having this beautiful discussion. So I like let go of my need for something to be a certain way, even though the story was playing out in my head and I was still feeling a little bit sad. I was like, this is my moment to practice everything I've learned.
Wow.
This is my moment to not make that story up, still feel a little bit hurt for a second, but not let it build and build and build and spin and grow and grow and grow, because then just 5 minutes later, everyone's sitting down and we have the beautiful discussion. So if it would have gone to that story in the past, everyone would have sat down and I probably would have moped and went off, or been like hurt and they would have held space for me. You know, it would have been a whole different experience. And it happened again later that night because we all were meditating and we were going to have cake afterwards. So everyone leaves the room and there's a few of us in there, and I'm like, oh man, like they're probably going and eating the cake without me. But I was like, whatever. I'm just like, I'm letting go of my need to like control and be anywhere else than where I am. So I just stayed in the conversation I was in and just brought myself back to the present. And then 5 minutes later, they come in with the cake and they put candles on it and they sang me happy birthday and they brought me tea. Nice. And I was just like, wow, like when I let go of my need to control, I actually receive what I desire. And even if I don't receive what I desire, I still practiced the equanimity in that moment and took back my power. So
it's pretty amazing the kind of suffering we create for ourselves.
Isn't
it?
Yeah. So much suffering. Like I let go and I let go and I let go, and then you just get to experience the magic of all the moments, whether they're ordinary and you're just in a beautiful conversation, or it's silence, or it's a birthday song happening. You know, it kind of like, it feels like my life used to feel like this, like big highs, big lows, big highs, big lows. And now it's just like, just kind of wavy. Like, I'm just like, oh, I have this feeling, and then like kind of goes away, and then, oh, like something kind of good happened, but I'm not like overexcited or like I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is life-changing to experience this moment. It's just like another moment. It's just like every moment kind of starts to feel like the same moment, like almost ordinary, but not in a bad way.
But also hearing you too, it's not that you're denying whatever's arising. Like you have what we call negative feelings or positive, whatever the feelings are. I hate to call it negative, positive, but we do that in our culture. Like you feel what you feel.
It's a sensation.
And they just come up and they rise like clouds in the sky. And
that was one of the biggest things that I took away from the Vipassana experience, and it's something that is the hardest thing to remember. But when you remember, it's the most powerful thing. Is just they call it anicca, change. It's like a wavelet, you know, drop, bloop, 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 and then settles, drop, bloop, 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 settles. So change is truly the only thing constant in life. So accepting that and experiencing sits where it was like, one sit was really great and I felt so empowered. The next sit, the worst thing in the world. How the heck am I going to get through this? Every single one was different, and you kind of like start to realize, oh, this is just life. This is just life. Everything I'm experiencing in here, all the pain, all the highs, all the lows, this is the same thing that I'm experiencing in life. I'm just experiencing at a much more heightened state right now because you're in the subconscious reality. You're like working in your subconscious because you don't have all the distractions. So then, you come back and you're just like, oh, I can handle this. Like, I'm capable of this. If it's happening, then it's meant for me. So why resist it? You know?
So what I hear you saying is like facing reality as it is.
Yes.
And how I wish it to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice.
Face it as it is.
Yeah.
Accept it as it is.
Inner reality and external reality, which is really one and the same, but we don't have to go there, but
Absolutely. I definitely have had so many moments where I've just looked back on my life of like how much of reality I just fabricated to be hard. You know? And I think it's really easy to be like, oh yeah, life is going to be hard, or relationships are going to be hard, or, you know, this project is going to be hard, and we chase and we seek the highs, and then we avoid the lows. but we're like neglecting all the in between, just the ordinary moments. And I think those are like the most powerful moments, because if you can become okay with the ordinary, then the highs and lows become less extreme.
So like doing laundry.
Yes.
And just doing laundry.
Yes.
Literally.
Absolutely. Just doing laundry, just doing dishes, just being okay with the ordinary, I think is the most powerful thing you could do.
Nice. You also share too the work that you do, and I kind of see the connection between the simplicity of your own experience, which you've articulated the last bit of time, and the kind of world that you're helping to create. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of post-conventional living?
Post-conventional living.
Workspace that you're helping the world generate?
Absolutely. So my business is called Lavender Moon Spaces, and I provide people with alternative housing solutions. So I help people that are looking for something non-traditional when it comes to a living space. So that could look like a shipping container home or a glamping dome. Wherever you're at, whether you're looking for something alternative or affordable, more sustainable, more eco-friendly, I am helping people find some alternative solutions to that. And the main reason why is because when my first career, I was a real estate agent.
I didn't know that.
And I started out in kind of the rich dad, poor dad community. I read that book and I was really inspired. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my pathway to freedom, but I have no money. So I need to start making money first. So I started going to some local real estate investment groups, learned all about wholesaling and all these different real estate investing things. But I had no experience, and it's really hard to start getting into it without experience. So I was like, okay, well, what's the closest best thing I can do to start making money? Become a real estate agent. So I started doing that. I started out door knocking, and I knocked 1,000 doors in 1 month.
Wow.
And 1 month later, it was like 1 or 2 months later, I closed a $15,000 deal. I was, 21 at the time, just turned 21. And it was like more money than I ever made at one point in my life. And so I started to, experience a lot more financial wealth and freedom in my life. But over the course of the next couple of years, I continued to generate more money and a lot more opportunities. I started flipping houses, working with my dad, he's a contractor. We started partnering on stuff. I started creating opportunities for some of my family members that wanted to get into real estate investing. So I would, flip houses and turn them into something nicer or something bigger or something more profitable. And I really enjoyed that process. But the last couple of months before I quit that career, I lost all my deals. I had $1 million deal in the pipeline.
Wow.
Which would have been, a big payoff, 3.5% of $1 million home, it's a good chunk of change. I had that in the pipeline, and I had 2 other clients that I was actively working with, and everyone dropped off. And I just went into this deep state of reflection of my life and just everything I'd experienced in the last 2 years. It was kind of like a whirlwind. I was really caught up in it and like chasing the dollar, and I didn't really, I equated money to freedom. So I was like, I just want to go and make money. That'll make me happy. I knew that wouldn't really make me happy, but I still had never experienced it. So it was like, I needed to experience it for myself. And when I looked back at my last 2 years, because now I had all this time to think and sit there and do nothing, I was like, I'm not happy. So money and making money is not really making me happy. And after that, I really set out on this quest to find out more about what would make me feel more fulfilled. And along the journey, I was introduced to minimalism, this lifestyle,
nice.
This way of living. And I watched the Minimalism documentary.
The two guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I cut my hair, I dyed it blonde, I moved into an RV, and I was just like, I don't know what's next, but I'm going to try something different. And I had a great time. I loved the process of renovating it. But I was still unhappy. I was really lonely and I was alone. So I was like, okay, so I sold that. I was only in it for like 2 weeks. And then I sold that and just kind of went on a soul quest journey to discover more about spirituality in different parts of my life, find fulfillment in other ways aside from just a career. And along the way, I was finally like, okay, I'm ready to get back to like having my own thing. You know, I was working for other people doing different like odd ends, but I was like feeling a deeper calling to something. And when I looked back on my life, I was like, well, what do I want to do? Like, what do I like doing? And I was like, I like transforming spaces. That's the only thing that's the one thing I knew I could come back to and enjoy. So I was like, okay, well, how do I do that? Not in real estate now. I was like, well, I did that RV. I could do RVs. And I talked to a friend about it. She was like, check out vans. I talked to another friend who was like, check out buses. So I got led down this whole path, ended up buying a shuttle bus for $3,500 and ran out of all my money that I had saved at that time. So I was like, well, I got credit cards. So put everything on a credit card, no plan of what I was really going to do next. But I was just kind of following any sense of inspiration and passion and purpose that I felt, because that felt better than pursuing something for a paycheck. So I was like, okay, well, this just feels good, so I'm going to keep doing it. I don't know what the plan is, but I didn't even know before. So something will probably work out at some point. And everything just unfolded. My friend took a video of me and was like, post this on YouTube. So I posted my video on YouTube. The video on YouTube blows up. Gets over like 1 million views.
Wow.
And now I have a business. I have all these organic, potential clients coming to me, asking for me to build out their space for them. Ended up launching a whole business, and
That's cool.
it was a whole journey. So
like van life and bus life?
Yeah, van life, bus life. So got really into that and spent most of my time not as an actual van lifer, but as like the builder. So supporting all these people. So I still kind of feel like I was on the outside looking in. And I thought that having a business that filled me, now I'll be happy. But no, I was still not happy because I was doing things in the business that I didn't like. But I still felt, I didn't really know how it would come about, but I knew I wanted to be in that space somehow. I had built, something I was really proud of, something I really believed in, but I wasn't able to offer what I thought I was supposed to offer. So I didn't ever give up on the vision, but I just feel like I needed more life experience. But along the way, I learned, I sold all of my stuff. I had like a $3,000 square foot house that I had furnished. I sold everything, downsized into a shuttle bus. So it was like, experiencing getting rid of everything, giving stuff away, and just having my stuff. It was so nice. I had a lot less to think about. I didn't have to walk as far to get my things. I had everything organized. I only had what I absolutely loved. And it was freeing because I wasn't tied to my stuff anymore. So along the way, I learned a lot about how to live with less and how to only have what I need.
It's really interesting because the visual I'm getting is like, oh, that's kind of like your recent retreat.
Yeah.
Like it's really almost this similar thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to be attached to these stories. I don't need to be attached to these things. It's all stuff.
Yeah.
Stories and stuff.
Stories are just stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So, so now that's all kind of coming together in a new and exciting way. I feel like coming out of the Vipassana, I just feel so excited to serve. I feel like in the past, I still had this attachment to making money from what I was doing. And of course I still want to make money, but that's not my focus now. I feel like that's still kind of like, it still was something that distracted me, and kept me from really being in full service to people. And I had that reflected to me through even the way that some of my clients would treat me. They would say things about how I treated them. And I'm like, I'm not treating you that way. And now I look back and I was like, they're absolutely right. Like I was treating them that way. I could have cared more. I could have been more compassionate, and I could have been more understanding. And even sometimes you do all that and it's not enough. But I think if you do the best that you can, then that's better than nothing.
Loving kindness.
Yeah. So I just feel like now, it was almost like everything in my life has happened exactly the way it could, so that now I can be in a place of true service. And now as my business grows, I have the right mental volition of like why I'm doing everything. And now I truly feel connected to the mission more than anything, because I feel the pain of what the housing crisis is causing, how that's affecting so many people's lives. And I was tired of being in the real estate industry because no one in my age could afford to buy a house. And even the people that are my age and can afford to buy a house, there's still a much smaller percentage of people than has been the norm in history of people have been able to own their homes or have freedom, some sense of freedom, which is to me just a little bit more than what you need, being a little bit more comfortable. So I think that alternative living solutions are the future of living, because when you get rid of the stuff and you realize you can actually live with a lot less and you only need what you actually need, now all of a sudden you just made more money because, but you didn't actually have to work anymore. You just lessened your expenses.
Walk us through some of the alternative living solutions, like some of the things that are out there that people can go, oh my God, that's really interesting. I want to learn more about that area.
Yeah, so there's so many alternative living solutions. Modular housing is a really big craze that's taking over the market right now. Companies like Boxable and stuff like that. So a modular home is not the same as a manufactured home. Okay. A modular home is made in a factory, so it's pre-manufactured, and usually it's assembled and then sent to you assembled, but you can also have it delivered to you partially assembled, or you can even have it delivered to you as a kit. For example, a glamping dome. That's something that's pre-manufactured and you put it together. Another example would be a shipping container home. So, we're using all these shipping containers to send cargo back and forth, and then they just go and sit, in a yard. And so those can be recycled and reused for housing solutions. So those are a couple of alternatives that are available.
Are those alternatives running against state and local ordinances and regulations?
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of pushback from the city because they have their things their way. And if something is different to them, they usually will just say no. But because there is such a high demand for housing and such a low demand of affordable housing, we have a problem now. And so now this solution is becoming something that the cities are starting to be a lot more open to.
That's good.
Yeah. So they're starting to, say, well, then make it this way and you can do it. Nice. So as long as, depending on the manufacturer, a lot of them are working with their local cities or, federal governments to create the living spaces pre-manufactured to fit the standards that an inspector would come to a new house, for example, and be looking for. So they're building them to code. Okay. Yeah.
Can you get loans from banks to pay for these alternative housing solutions?
Some of them. You can get bank loan. So you can only get like a federal loan, for example, which is the most common home loan. In order to get a federal loan, you have to be on a foundation and connected to utilities. Okay. Anything outside of that, they will not lend on. Okay. And even then, there are restrictions on sizing. So a lot of times, for a long time, this is changing now, but for a long time, cities did not have a permitting process for housing underneath 400 square feet.
Tiny homes. Okay.
Yeah, which is considered a tiny home.
Right.
So now that's changing because people are wanting solutions. People need solutions. And they're realizing, the city's starting to realize they're losing money by not creating a solution for people. So now they're building in codes that have jurisdictions around what is required for a tiny home in order to make it something that could be built to code and added on to your property. Because if it's permitted, now it can be put into the appraisal, which is what the banks will lend on.
Okay, plus tax.
Plus tax.
They can be taxed.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can put some of these housing on foundation and the city will approve, but you need to make sure that your city will approve it before you put it on the foundation. Right. You can also get pre-manufactured homes that you just assemble on site on the foundation. So it's just like building a regular home, but instead of using wood, for example, you would get a steel frame house. Okay. So you can send the schematics of your design to a manufacturing company and they'll give you a kit of all the steel pre-cut to your design. Wow. So it saves time, it saves labor, it saves energy. You're using a lot more sustainable resource because steel lasts like 500 years versus wood, So it's a much more sustainable material to invest into, for example. So these are just, some ideas.
Yeah, that's really cool. So if people want to learn more about what you do in this space, how do they do that?
So if you want to learn more about what I do, my Instagram at Lavender Moon Spaces is the most up to date.
Cool.
So I'm in pre-launch phase at the moment of all the new things I've been sharing about.
Okay.
So the whole business model changed this year.
Okay.
So January, I'm going to be relaunching everything.
Oh, nice.
So
not too far away.
Yeah, so the website will be up and redesigned, and then Instagram will have the most up-to-date stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome home.
Thank you so much.
There's nothing in between you and me. Nothing in between blue and sea. Nothing in between us and love. Nothing in between wings and us. Nowhere to hide in the open reality. Love is so wide, there isn't a boundary.